Do you know what's the difference between someone who goes unnoticed and someone who creates magnetic connections without saying a single word? The answer lies in something as simple as it is devastating: microgazes. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover the exact formula that transforms your presence from invisible to unforgettable. Imagine for a moment that you walk into a room full of people. Most are looking around everywhere, seeking validation, trying to fit in. But you know exactly what to do with your eyes. You know when to look away, and most importantly, you know how to create that magnetic tension that makes the other person unable to stop thinking about you. This isn't coincidence, it's not luck. It's a precise science that few master and that you're going to learn step by step today. Neil Strauss documented it perfectly. The game begins before you say the first word. It begins with the first look. And that first look can change absolutely everything. But before we continue, I need you to do something. If you really want to master this skill, if you're willing to transform your magnetic presence, hit that like button right now. Because what's coming next requires your total attention and commitment. The first truth you need to understand is that your eyes reveal everything about you before you open your mouth. Every micro-expression, every duration of eye contact, every moment you decide to look or look away is communicating something specific, and most people are doing it completely wrong. Has it ever happened to you that when you're talking to someone you're attracted to, you don't know where to look? Do you feel that uncertainty about whether to maintain eye contact or look away? Or worse yet, do you notice that the other person seems uncomfortable when you look at them directly? This happens because no one taught you the difference between looking and observing consciously. Neil Strauss discovered something fundamental. Seduction doesn't happen in the words, it happens in the spaces between the words. And those spaces are created precisely with the gaze. When you master the art of the micro-gaze, you're controlling those spaces. You're creating tension and attraction at a completely subconscious level. Here's your first practical exercise. For the next 3 days, every time you have an important conversation, practice what we call the triangle rule. Look into the person's eyes for 3 seconds, then lower your gaze to their lips for 1 second, and finally return to their eyes. This pattern creates a micro-tension that the other person feels without being able to explain why. But that's just the beginning, because there's something even more powerful you need to master. The second major revelation is that the real magic isn't in staring intensely, but in knowing exactly when to look away. This is the difference between someone who generates attraction and someone who generates discomfort. Masters of magnetic presence understand that withdrawing your gaze at the precise moment creates more impact than keeping it fixed. Think about it this way. When someone stares at you for too long, how do you feel? Probably uncomfortable, right? But when someone looks at you intensely and then looks away with a slight smile, as if they saw something they liked but didn't want to be too obvious about it, what happens? Your mind starts filling with questions. What did they see? What are they thinking? Why did they smile like that? This is the fundamental difference. Amateurs try to maintain constant eye contact because they believe that demonstrates confidence. Experts know that true confidence is demonstrated in the ability to create and control tension through the presence and absence of the gaze. Neil Strauss explained it perfectly. Power isn't in looking. Power is in making the other person want you to look at them. And this is achieved precisely with mastery of timing. You look enough to create connection, and you withdraw enough to create curiosity. Your second exercise is what we call the rebound effect. The next time you're in a group conversation, practice this. When someone is speaking, look at them directly for 5 seconds, then shift your gaze to another part of the room with a thoughtful expression, as if their words had triggered a deep thought in you. After 3 seconds, return your gaze to that person. You'll see how they immediately seek your visual approval, because you've created a void that their ego needs to fill. Keep this pattern, because what's coming now is going to completely revolutionize your understanding. The third truth that changes everything is that your eyes can create 3 different types of connection: the connection of equality, the connection of superiority, and the connection of mystery. Each generates a completely different emotional response, and knowing which one to use at each moment is what separates those who master social interactions from those who simply participate in them. The connection of equality is when you look directly into the other person's eyes at the same level, with a relaxed and open expression. This look says, "We are equals, I feel comfortable with you, you can trust me." It's perfect for building rapport and making the other person feel safe. The connection of superiority is more subtle. It's when you look slightly down at the other person, not physically, but energetically. Your gaze has an evaluative quality, as if you were seeing something interesting, but maintaining certain emotional distance. This look generates respect and intrigue, but must be used carefully because it can be intimidating. But the most powerful of all is the connection of mystery. This is when you alternate between an intense and personal gaze and moments where your gaze becomes distant, as if you were seeing something the other person cannot see. Neil Strauss documented this as the artist's gaze, because it's as if you were seeing something beautiful or profound that goes beyond superficial conversation. Have you noticed how some people have that ability to make you feel like you're the only person in the room when they look at you, but at the same time you feel there are depths in them you can't reach? That's exactly the effect of the mystery connection. Your third exercise requires conscious practice. For 1 week, dedicate each day to practicing a different type of connection. Monday and Tuesday, practice the connection of equality in casual conversations. Wednesday and Thursday, experiment with the connection of superiority in professional situations. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, perfect the mystery connection in social interactions. But here comes the element that most people never consider. The fourth revelation is that your micro-gazes must be perfectly synchronized with your breathing and your internal energy. You can't fake a powerful gaze if internally you're anxious, needy, or insecure. The authentically magnetic gaze is born from an internal state of completeness and genuine confidence. This is what most advice about eye contact doesn't tell you. They teach you the technique, but they don't teach you the internal state that makes the technique work. You can practice all the gaze patterns in the world, but if inside you're desperate for approval, your gaze will give you away. Neil Strauss understood this deeply. True confidence cannot be faked in the gaze. Eyes are windows not only to the soul, but to the real emotional state. That's why, before perfecting your gaze technique, you need to perfect your relationship with yourself. How many times have you tried to maintain eye contact with someone, but felt that internal pressure, that need for the other person to respond positively? That need contaminates your gaze and makes it sticky instead of magnetic. The difference is that a magnetic gaze doesn't need anything from the other. It offers itself as a gift, not as a demand. Here you have a transformative exercise we call the observer's gaze. Stand in front of a mirror every day for 5 minutes. Look directly into your own eyes and practice holding that gaze without judging yourself, without needing your reflection to give you something back. Simply observe and accept what you see. When you can look at yourself with complete neutrality and acceptance, that same quality will be reflected in how you look at others. But the exercise doesn't end there. After mastering the neutral gaze, practice the appreciation gaze. Look at yourself in the mirror and allow your eyes to reflect genuine curiosity and appreciation for the person you see. Not vanity, not narcissism, but benevolent curiosity, as if you were seeing a good friend you haven't seen in a long time. This internal practice is what allows your external micro-gazes to have that magnetic and irresistible quality, because when you look at yourself with curiosity and appreciation, you naturally look at others the same way. And there we arrive at the final element, the most powerful of all. The fifth and final revelation is what we call the gaze that tells stories. Masters of magnetic presence don't just look, they create complete narratives with their eyes. Each microgaze is a chapter in a story that the other person wants to keep reading. Think about the people who have impacted you most in your life. Isn't it true that their eyes seem to tell stories? When they looked at you, you felt there were adventures, experiences, depths you wanted to explore. This isn't coincidence. It's the result of living a rich life internally and allowing that richness to be reflected in the gaze. Neil Strauss described this phenomenon as the traveler's gaze. It's not about someone who has necessarily traveled the world, but someone who has traveled through their own inner world. Someone who has faced their fears, embraced their shadows, celebrated their strengths, and developed a deep relationship with themselves. When your gaze tells stories, you don't need to talk about your achievements or experiences to be interesting. Your presence itself communicates that there's something valuable to discover. And this creates what we call the gravitational effect. People feel naturally attracted to you because they sense that being near you will enrich them somehow. How do you develop this quality? First, you need to create real stories in your life. This doesn't mean you have to climb Everest or write a novel. It means you need to live your life consciously and intentionally. Every experience, every challenge overcome, every moment of personal growth becomes part of the narrative your eyes will tell. Second, practice what we call the narrative pause. In the middle of your conversations, allow moments where your gaze becomes slightly distant, as if you were remembering something beautiful or meaningful. Don't force it, but allow those natural moments of internal reflection to show in your gaze. These moments create curiosity and depth. Your final exercise is the most important of all. For the next 30 days, commit to living at least one new experience each week. It can be as simple as taking a different route to work, trying new food, having a deep conversation with a stranger, or learning something you've always wanted to learn. The key is that you live each experience consciously, allowing it to change and enrich you. At the end of each day before sleeping, dedicate 5 minutes to reflecting on what you lived, what you learned, how you grew. This practice will fill your gaze with real content, with authentic stories to tell without words. Now that you know these 5 fundamental elements, let me ask you something. Are you willing to transform not only your gaze, but the person you are inside? Because that's the truth. No one tells you about the power of micro-gazes. It's not just about a technique you learn, it's about a personal transformation you live. When you master these principles, you don't just change how others see you, you change how you see yourself. You develop confidence that doesn't depend on external validation, a presence that doesn't need to constantly prove itself, a capacity for connection that goes far beyond words. The micro-gazes that drive people crazy aren't cheap seduction tricks. They're the external expression of a rich, conscious, and authentic life. They're the visual language of someone who has taken the time to know themselves deeply and who presents themselves to the world from that authenticity. Do you remember the question we started with? The difference between someone who goes unnoticed and someone who creates magnetic connections. Now you know that the answer isn't just in how you look, but in who you are when you look. Every time you practice these exercises, every time you commit to your internal growth, every time you choose authenticity over the need to please, you're developing that magnetic presence that can't be faked because it's born from your deepest truth. But here comes the most important part of everything we've talked about. These principles only work if you apply them consistently. It's not enough to understand them intellectually. You need to live them, practice them, integrate them into your daily life until they become a natural part of who you are. That's why I want you to do something with me right now. If these 5 principles resonated with you, if you feel they're aligned with the type of person you want to be, write in the comments, "I choose my magnetic presence." I want to see how many of you are really committed to this transformation. But don't just stay with words. Starting tomorrow, begin implementing these exercises. Start with the first one, the triangle rule, and practice it for a week until it becomes natural. Then incorporate the second, then the third, and so on. Remember that real transformation takes time, but you'll notice the first changes immediately. In a few days, you'll start to notice how people respond differently to your presence. In a few weeks, you'll notice how your own confidence and internal security changes. If this content has helped you, if you feel it has given you real tools to transform your presence, there are 3 things I need you to do right now. First, hit that like button so more people can discover these techniques. Second, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming videos where we'll dive deeper into other aspects of magnetic presence and advanced social skills. And third, share this video with that person you know needs to hear this message. We all know someone who has a lot to offer but goes unnoticed because they don't know how to project their true value. This could be the video that changes their life. In upcoming videos, we'll explore how to use the power of silence to create magnetic tension, how to develop a voice that commands respect automatically, and how to create a physical presence that communicates leadership without saying a word. But all of that builds on the foundation of what you learned today. The micro-gazes that drive people crazy aren't just a seduction technique. They're a life philosophy. They're the conscious decision to present yourself to the world as the best version of yourself, to connect from authenticity instead of need, to create value instead of desperately seeking it in others. When you started watching this video, maybe you thought you were just going to learn some tricks about eye contact. But I hope you now realize this goes much deeper. This is about becoming the type of person who naturally attracts the best in life, not because they use manipulative techniques, but because they've developed an authentic and magnetic presence. The world needs more people like that. People who connect from abundance instead of scarcity. People who offer value instead of desperately seeking it. People who have done the internal work necessary to present themselves to the world with genuine confidence. That person can be you. In fact, that person is already inside you, waiting for you to make the decision to let them out. The exercises I gave you today are just the beginning. They're the key that opens the door, but you have to decide to walk through it. So I leave you with this final reflection. What kind of story do you want your eyes to tell? What kind of presence do you want to develop? What kind of connections do you want to create in your life? The answers to these questions will determine not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important transformation of all. See you in the next video, where we'll take these skills to the next level. Meanwhile, practice, experiment, and above all, commit to becoming the best version of yourself. Your future self will thank you for the decision you make today.